So if you guys would just stand up this morning and worship with us and turn to page 54. And let's worship together and sing out to God on this beautiful morning of rain, much needed rain. So let's just gather together, sing this chorus out, and worship together this morning.
Anyways, I'm super excited, and so he asked me about what songs to do and stuff like that, and so I helped him out. I showed him some things that I felt like he would know inside of the hymnal, and I hope you guys enjoy it because he's somebody that means a whole lot to me. So I'm going to pray, and we're going to continue our service this morning. Jesus, thank you for today. Thank you for the time you've given us. God, thank you for letting Tyson come in and be here to lead us to you in worship. God, I know that you are just so glorified and you are blessed when we focus on you and sing words of true worship to you. God, help us to focus on what these words are saying as we echo the words of angels singing, as we sing about the great works you've done in our lives. And Lord, I pray that you just help us to take this time to truly honor you with our songs. Lord, I pray that you just prepare our hearts for your word this morning. Prepare us for what you're going to do. In your name I pray. Amen. Just take a minute. Find somebody you haven't said hi to yet. Shake their hand and tell them good morning.
turn to page 83, and we'll sing Be Thou My Vision.
Dustin, I'm going to put you on the spot real quick. You don't have to come up here again, don't worry. I'll stress you out. When do you leave?
June 16th.
June 16th. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm going to be a little weird here and get my phone out. You leave June 16th, so your last Sunday will be the 11th? Okay. One announcement real quick, I want to make sure everybody knows. We're going to have a special time of prayer. I was talking to Haskell about this actually the other day, and we just really, he came to me with the idea, and I was very excited about it. We want to have a special time of prayer of commissioning with Dustin, like you see in the book of Acts regularly, where they send people off by coming forward, laying hands on them, and just saying, we're going to send you out with prayer. So we're going to have a special time of that on June 11th. I'm super excited about that. It's going to be very good. I do want to give you two quick apologies. First of all, I know our sign is empty this week, and I am so sorry. I mentioned that on Thursday, and it just didn't happen. We actually talked about it in Sunday school this morning, and we all got to laugh at me a little bit. So I'm sorry for that. But second of all, I do want to say we do have our updated prayer lists in the lobby right now if you guys want to grab any of those. We do have our fish fry today. I was just talking to Nathan about this. And I think what our plan is right now is we're moving forward as planned and just going to see what God does with the weather. And so as of right now, we're just moving ahead with 4 o'clock at Nathan's farm. It's going to be incredible food, so just come and hang out. Let's have some great fellowship and enjoy our time this afternoon together. As far as supporting for Dustin for his mission trip, if you still want to go through that, we really appreciate it. They still are doing, let's see, what has to be turned in today? Coffee orders are today, so if you were going to order some coffee from them, then make sure you turn those things in today, or fill that out, do that stuff, and get that to them. That'd be great. I know that Jennifer and Tyler are also needing to raise some money too, so if you want to help them as well, that'd be much appreciated. We are still looking for a nursery worker on Wednesday nights, so if you want to come talk to me about that, let me know if that's something that you would like to be a part of. We are in need. Lastly, we are having a youth hike on June the 3rd. They're going to go up and do the hike around Benton Falls, and so very excited for that. I've got some students going, and then I think there's already some other people plan on being there. And if you'd like to go, if this just sounds like something you'd like to be a part of, go and hang out with them, then I'm sure Christian wouldn't mind extra company and other people to, route the bears off and all that stuff. So if you guys can do that, that'd be great. I think that's it from, oh, no, I do have to say one more thing. Tyson got to see it. So I was just up here, and I was kind of trying to talk to him about the way we do our services and stuff. And I said, oh, it's funny, because I left my hymnal up here, and I just put it on my armrest. And I said, oh, it's funny about that. We have a little running joke going about me dropping my hymnal. As I said that, it fell on the floor. So if you missed it, shaking hands, I had made it, I think, like 5 or 6 weeks in a row, and I have missed it. But Ronnie wasn't here. So, so I'm so excited for that. That makes me so happy. So anyways, that's it for the announcements. Let's continue and worship together and enjoy this time.
Go ahead and stand back with us and turn to page 506 in Christ Alone. Go ahead and turn to page 239 and wonderful cross. And on the last verse, if our ushers could come to take the morning offering.
Shall we pray together? Father, we bow in your presence this morning for the purpose of worship and servitude. And Father, we are found in awe of the greatness and majesty of who you are. Father, as we worship you this time with your tithes and our offerings. It's our prayer that they will be used in a way that is purposeful for you and the ongoing of your kingdom, not only in this place, but outside these walls. In Christ's name, amen.
us. And if you want to, you can stand back up and we can worship together. How deep the Father's love for us, how vast beyond all measure, that He should give His only Son to make the wretch His treasure. How great the pain of searing loss! The Father turns His face away as wounds which mar the chosen one. He sons to glory. Behold, behold the man upon the cross, my sin upon His shoulders, ashamed of Him, my mocking voice called out among the scoffers. What's my sin? It was my sin that held Him there until it was accomplished. His dying breath hath taught me the right, and I know that it is finished. I will not boast in anything. Have paid my ransom. Let's sing that line again. Think about the implications of that. So how God sent His Son down for us, for those wounds, to pay our ransom, where we can live as a people who are free. His wounds have paid my ransom.
I'm gonna get you in order up here, Tyson. I got you covered, man. Get your next stuff together. So, last week, we do have Children's Church Day. We have Miss Cynthia leading it, so if you have a child that wants to go, please make sure they head out there. Cynthia is incredible at this. Last week we opened up our new series. It's a shorter series than James was. James took me 9 months to get through, and I know that's going to make you guys extremely fearful when we pick any larger book, because it's going to be a long time. So we're doing a shorter thing right now. We're going to go through just the 7 churches in Revelation. Actually, in speaking with Haskell, he also asked a pertinent question. He said, do you really think you're going to get through those churches in 7 weeks? And I said, absolutely not. There will be some of these that will be 2-parters and things like that. I'm going to do my best, but there's a lot of information here I'm very excited about. And I'd said this last week, I'm just going to repeat it this week. James is all about personal conviction. You get to read the book of James, and it is nonstop, just item after item after item, story after story, paragraph after paragraph, helping us as individuals become better Christians, become better followers of Christ, grow in our maturity. And so it's very convicting individually. This is a little shift here because in the churches in Revelation, this is Jesus himself writing or speaking to churches as a whole. And so what's supposed to happen here is that us as a church, we are supposed to feel convicted communally. Does that make sense? So this is Jesus talking to us as Wetmore Baptist Church, is how we should be reading and understanding this. That this is for us as a whole. How are we as a church functioning? How are we as a church doing? Almost you have a diagnosis, you have a remedy that's given, you have things that are happening and stuff, and so it's a very exciting thing to go through here, and I love this section. You have many a person who have preached it and preached it very well, so please, if you've heard it before, please don't critique me too harshly. I'll do my best, but I think that this is very important for us to hear, because this is something that applies to us as the church. I'm going to pray, and then we're going to get straight on in here. Jesus, I just want to thank you for a chance to be here this morning and worship you. Thank you again for bringing Tyson in. Thank you for all that Ronnie does. I know that he is so incredible. We're so thankful for him here. Pray you give him safety as he travels and up in Canada, God. Lord, I pray that you would guide us to you this morning. Lord, I pray you use the worship when we sing so much about your work on the cross and what the gospel is, to help us to take this passage very seriously. I pray that you go ahead and begin softening our hearts and working in us for how we need to respond to you as Wetmore Baptist Church and as the individuals that make it up. Lord, we love you so much. In your name I pray. Amen. So, we're going to be in Revelation chapter 2, and I'm going to read verses 1 through, let's see here, I think it's 7. And so I'm going to read them real quick, and then we're going to walk back through them. It says, "To the angel of the church in Ephesus write, the words of him who holds the 7 stars in his right hand, who walks among the 7 golden lampstands. I know your work, your toil, your patient endurance, and how you cannot bear with those who are evil, but have tested those who call themselves apostles and are not, and found them to be false. I know you are enduring patiently and bearing up for my name's sake, and you have not grown weary. But I have this against you, that you have abandoned the love you had at first. Remember therefore from where you have fallen, repent and do the works you did at first. If not, I will come to you and remove your lampstand from its place, unless you repent. Yet this you have, you hate the works of the Nicolaitans, which I also hate. He who has an ear, let him hear the word that the Spirit says to the churches. To the one who conquers, I will grant to eat of the tree of life, which is in the paradise of God." So I'm going to break this down a little bit differently. This goes from a commendation to a review, back to another commendation. I'm going to put all the commendations together and walk through them first. And we're going to talk about those briefly at the beginning, and then we're going to go. So when he starts out and he says, "To the angel of the church at Ephesus," we talked about this last week in the opening. Jesus tells us himself that that these angels that are there, the 7 stars that he holds in his hand, and we see those that most people agree, and I think that this is referring to the pastor or pastors of the church, because the reason that we think that is because they're included in the rebuke. So whenever he is rebuking the church, he's including the angel inside of that. So we wouldn't think he would be putting the burden of a church's sin on an angel if an angel's just here. And so we're thinking that this would be symbolically referring to the pastors that God has put there to give leadership. And so this is who that's referring to. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Ephesian church. So the gospel is introduced in the church by Priscilla and Aquila. They go and do this. Soon they're joined by Apollos, and you get to read about Apollos a lot in 1 Corinthians. He is a master preacher. Apparently he is just an incredible orator. He's able to preach so well. And Paul and Timothy both pastored here. Most scholars agree that John pastored here before he was exiled to Patmos. So they have had like some of the upper echelon of pastors here at this church. And you know what they did in Ephesus? They complained about their leadership. I mean, they had the top of the line. And so I just want to make sure that we all know that's kind of a normal thing for churches. But although I'm going to be honest, I think it would be probably pretty difficult to have Paul as your pastor, because man, he's a strong guy. he really didn't pull any punches, did he? He's pretty straightforward with the things that he was dealing with. But so that's the leadership there. This is one of the most important cities in all the Asian province. It's famous for its temple to Artemis or Diana, so it has this major thing there. But the worship there was evil. They had temple prostitutes. They had all kinds of evil things that would happen. This is sacrifices and other things that would happen in this worship to Artemis. And so this is this is a really sick place. And so this is who he's writing to. So he's writing to this church at Ephesus. And he says, he holds the 7 stars in his right hand, and he walks in the midst of the 7 golden lampstands. So what's neat about that is, what we'll see is in chapter 1, you saw this vision of Jesus. And then each section or each church they write to uses a portion of that description of Jesus to describe himself to the church he's writing to. And usually it has to do with what he's going to talk to them about. And so this is him saying, look, I am the one who I'm walking among the church. So he's reminding them at the very beginning, the lampstand is the church. He's saying to the church at Ephesus, I am among your church. I am here at the church in Ephesus. You are not functioning by yourself. You're not doing things isolated from me. I'm here. And he's saying again, I also hold your leadership in my hand. The pastors that I've placed there, they are in my hand. And I am holding them up, and they are functioning because I've given them the ability to, and there's no other thing. If it's man-based, then you need to forgive it. Then he goes on, and we get to kind of some of the meat here. It says in verse 2, I know your works, your labor, your toil, and your patient endurance. All right, we're going to go through some words here. You guys know me. I'm big into words, and these are important ones. So the word know, when he says, I know your works, the Greek word is oida, and that is not a progressive acquisition of knowledge. So when we know things, a lot of times we slowly have things that we learn. We gain knowledge. This is a complete understanding of something. So when Jesus says, I know your works, he's saying, I know absolutely in everything your church is doing. Okay, so when he makes this statement, this is not him saying, hey, I've kind of been watching, I'm getting to understand what your church is about and the things you do. He's saying, I know everything that you're doing. I know your works. And what do you mean by works is it's a general term for godly acts. It's the same word that James uses when he says that faith without works is dead. It's the same word there. And so this is the general things that mark a Christian life. Every Christian will have works that come in their life. Does that make sense? You cannot have Jesus Christ come into your heart, make you a new creation, and have no change. And so this is the works that change a Christian for who he is. And so these things would be basic things like love for God's word, love for prayer, love for the church, love for the lost, and action taken because of the love for these things. Then he says, I know your toil. That word is the word kopos, and that means labor to the point of exhaustion. This church worked hard doing work for the church. So what's neat here, so Jesus is saying, look, I know these things. I have full and complete understanding of all the things you're doing. So the works that make you look like a Christian, I see them. I know what you're doing. I know the way you're acting. I see the way you're handling things. Sometimes you can feel like you're alone in the good choices you're making, right? Or you can feel like, man, I know I'm doing the right thing, but I don't feel like I'm getting paid for it. I don't feel like anything good is coming back to me for it. But what we can be reminded of here is, first of all, Jesus sees it. He's not absent and saying, he's not this God that's absolutely separate from the world, watching from heaven saying, oh, well, I guess they're going to do some other things. He is here. He's alive. He's functioning with us. And he's saying, look, I know the things that you're doing. I see them. Know that I see them. And then the second thing he says, I know this labor to the point of exhaustion. So this church was doing a good job of working hard. They came and they showed up and they did hard work. They showed up to do things. It made me think of, well, for me, it gave me a personal story. I've told you guys before, I think, so I did some renovation in our house. Not too long ago, I was renovating the basement. Anyways, one of the things I had to do was there was linoleum that was on concrete down there, and it had been there for decades. And I knew I needed to pick it up, to get it off, because the paper padding underneath or whatever had gotten damp, had gotten wet, and I was afraid of mold. So anyways, I thought that this would be a pretty quick process. I thought I'd be pulling it up, do maybe a little bit of scraping, and then you're done. I was on my hands and knees bleeding for days trying to scrape this junk up. It was the worst job. And I hate painting, but I would have painted an entire house before I had to do that again. That was the worst job ever. Oh, it was backbreaking. And you're sitting there and scraping these little razor blade things. We tried the bigger scrapers and they weren't strong enough to get it. So, it was literally hands and knees with a little 6-inch thing just trying to scrape this up. And it was miserable. Hunter's laughing a little bit. He got to see some of that happen, and it was just the most miserable work ever. I hated it. But that's what that labor to exhaustion. When you do that for a few hours, you're just beat. You're done. You can't stand up. There would literally be times I'd flop over in the concrete and just lay there sweating and panting, and death might come to me soon. It was awful. But then it also made me think for our church. I think of the work that our deacons have done and some of the other men coming in here and doing the work around our grounds, right? Anybody ever had to shovel mulch? Okay, shoveling a little mulch, not a big deal. A lot of mulch is exhausting. That is an exhausting process. Anybody ever had to till a little bit of ground? Jeff had to till a lot of ground. There is some exhausting work when you're doing things in the church. And in fact, if you're pulling your weight, if you're doing some things, you're going to sweat some. You're going to be exhausted some. Sometimes it's not physical exhaustion. Anybody ever kept the nursery for a couple hours when you have more kids than you can handle? Yeah. Francis has done that once or twice. That is exhausting, right? You come away from that thinking, I need like a coma. Not a nap. I need to go into like a couple-day coma, and I'll get up at the end of this and maybe be okay. Sometimes you go and it's Cynthia's not in here, but I can pick on her a little bit. Sometimes you come in and you got to balance the books and do the finances, and it is hours upon hours upon hours of working through this stuff and looking at it. Work can be exhausting, and Jesus is commending this church. He's saying, hey, look, I've seen your works. I've seen your toil. Man, you guys, you've worked hard. You've come in and done some hard stuff that's not easy, that other people don't want to do. You've worked to the point of exhaustion. He then says, I know your patient endurance. That's the word hupomone. You see it a lot in the New Testament. Hupomone is a very important word. So this is patience in trying circumstances. All right, I want to read this part because this is important. This does not denote a grim, fatalistic resignation, but a courageous acceptance of hardship, suffering, and loss. Okay, so this patient endurance is not sitting here saying, oh, woe is me, I have to come in, and nobody's doing that, nobody's doing this, and I have to do this. And that's not patient endurance, right? That is not patiently enduring something. That is fatalistically complaining about all the bad things that are happening and just doing the motions anyways. What this patient endurance is that even when times are hard, even when your particular job is tough, even when things are not the way you would like them to be, you're standing up strong and courageously saying, I know Christ still cares about our church. I know that I still have things that I can do because Christ has done such a big work in me. So instead of sitting here and just complaining and getting angry and mad and looking at others, you look inwardly and you say, God's done something great in my life, and I can do things because of that. And so this is that patient endurance that they get to have. God is delighted in this church's patience through difficult times. Then he says, you do not bear those who are evil. All right, so we're going to talk through this next part of the commendations. And again, I know there's a lot of information. There's some big stuff here that we need to see. So he praises them first for the fact that they have the works of a Christian. They're showing in their lives, their actions, their choices, that Christ is everything. He praises them for their toil, their hard work inside of the church. And they work to the point of exhaustion at some points. And he praises them for them being patiently enduring through these times. But then he says, you don't bear those who are evil. So they're sensitive to sin, and they held each other to a standard of holiness. This is what we see in Matthew 18 and 1 Corinthians 5, where you hold somebody accountable inside of the church for things that are happening. You go and you speak to people. And again, this is not in our culture, right? In our culture, when somebody does something wrong, instead of going to that person, what I like to do is go to everyone else and make sure they all agree with me that person's wrong, and then we go away together saying, yep, they're wrong, mission accomplished. Right? That's the end all be all. As long as my other friends agree with me, then we're all on the same page. And you don't see that in Scripture at all. In Scripture, we're called to first and foremost, when somebody has done something wrong, we go specifically and only to that person and say, hey, I saw this, and this, that's a struggle for me, and I need to talk to you about this. And if you win them over, then you have done something amazing. This is a beautiful thing. It's awesome. And only later would you ever bring anybody in on this. So this church took sin seriously, and they held each other accountable. They walked through things honestly together. It's an important part of keeping a church healthy. And so one of the things that means is that they're careful to make sure that their membership was clear, and that these are Christian people who are members there. They're careful not to allow a believing brother to remain in sin without ever saying anything about it. A lot of times we have a terrible view of what love is, right? We think love is not mentioning anything versus, if you love your child, do you discipline them? God does the same thing. And I'm not saying that we are anybody's parents here, but when you love your friend, you don't let them go into a path of destruction, right? If you see something coming into your friend's life, now, again, this is all about heart, because can you go and hold somebody accountable in a way that's not holy? Absolutely. If you go in and you come in as this judgmental, angry person that wants somebody to suffer, you're not doing it right. This is an act of love that's supposed to be happening. Going and telling somebody, I love you, and I'm telling you, that's going to destroy your life. And I don't want that for you. That's what this looks like, and they're so careful with this. And you see Jesus praising this church for not letting evil just remain unchecked in their church. How many times do we handle sin by sweeping it under the rug, or only gossiping about it among our friends? It makes me wonder on this particular point, not just our church, but I think churches in America, I wonder if we've done a good job at despising evil, about hating sin the way God does. Not because we hate people, we love people. We hate sin for what it does to those very people. And that's something that Jesus really calls out here, is hating what is evil because of the destruction it causes in the church. And one of the reasons that's important, we have to remember something. This church, Wetmore Baptist Church, and all other churches, are Christ's body. Do you think he cares about what we allow to go on inside of his body? Yeah, I think so. Would you go into a random surgery and say, hey, you can put anything you want inside me, I don't care what you do, put me to sleep and do whatever you want? No, because you care about your body, right? If anybody in here needed a specific surgery or particular surgery, would you allow an untrained surgeon to come in and perform the surgery? Could I do it? Would you lay down and say, all right, I'm going to give you a little bit of ether and I'm going to cut you open and I think I can figure it out. I dissected a frog in high school. I got this. Anybody up for that? No, because you care about your body. How much more do you think Christ cares about his? Christ cares about what we allow to come into his body, what we allow to be going on inside of his body, and we should care about that too. The other image we get of what the church is Christ's bride. Those men in here who are married, you okay with anybody doing anything they want to your spouse? No. Right? That immediately gets like kind of the anger inside of every man in the room. Like, oh, hey, what's he saying? I'll fight him if I have to. We care about our spouses. We jealously protect them. We care so much about what is going on with them. Do you think Jesus cares about his bride? And He's called us to care for His bride too, by caring about what goes inside, what's going on inside of His bride, what's going on inside of His body. And if we allow sin to run unchecked, if we care little about it, and if we feel like our response to sin is either to ignore it or just to gossip about it, therefore bringing more sin into the church, if that's the only way we handle sin, we have failed this. We have to care about what goes on. He says then that you have tested those who say they're apostles and have found them to be liars. You can turn here if you want to. I'm just going to paraphrase it so you don't have to. It's 2 Corinthians 11, 13 through 15 says that even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light, and won't false teachers disguise themselves as true pastors? So here's the thing. This church was careful about the leadership that they allowed themselves to be influenced by. They were careful. They knew the Word enough to know when somebody was coming in and lying to them, and they were careful about who they allowed to have leadership, who they allowed to be in charge, who they allowed themselves to be influenced by, even outside of the church, because this could also be through writings and through other things like that. They were careful about who they got their information from. And the thing is that these kind of people are still active today, right? People who claim to be pastors or teachers of the gospel that are corrupt, maybe purposefully, maybe they're out for greed. Do you guys think we still have some of those people who are in it for the money, who are trying to? And again, I don't want to be too harsh up here or anything, but some of the pastors who have several jets and multi-millions of dollars out of people who are impoverished is where they've got their money from. I think that's not the gospel I see in the Bible, right? That's not the way these things. So I think we have false teachers all the time. I think they don't have to be as obvious as that, though. Sometimes they're just people who are teaching you something because it makes them feel powerful, makes them feel good, or they're leading people astray. They'll hide everywhere. So how do we know what a false teacher looks like? It's by what they teach and by how they live, right? You can know somebody's a false teacher by comparing what they teach by what the Bible says. If the Bible does not cooperate or go along with what somebody is teaching, then it is wrong. There's nobody that is smarter than God's Word. There's nobody that can add to it, that can make it better, that can improve on it. Nobody can do this. And so if it doesn't line up with God's Word, then that is false. And the other thing is that a false teacher's life will never line up with a godly life. Does that make sense? Because when you're living a lie in front of others, when you're teaching out of any other reason, when it's corruption that is causing this stuff, then you're going to see it in the life. It says you have persevered and have patience, and you have labored for me and not become weary. So it's the second time that Christ praises the Ephesians for their patience and labor. It means a lot to Christ that the church works hard. Is it hard work to keep a church healthy? Yes, it is very hard work to keep a church healthy. Can one person do all the work that is required in the church? Can a group of 5 deacons do all the work that is required for the church to be healthy? No. It takes everyone. Everyone operating in the way that God has gifted them. It's one thing that I had a thought on with that is that a lot of churches, what we like to do is hire things out, right? And especially I want to say this in my capacity as a pastor, a lot of times what it'll be is, well, no, we've hired him so he can do all the work in the ministry. I don't need to do it anymore. Well, I want to make sure we understand this. Who constitutes the body of Christ or the bride of Christ? Just the pastor or the whole church? Whole church, okay, we're all there. If your spouse said, look, honey, I love you, but I'm just not in the mood to be a good wife or husband today. So don't worry, I've paid this guy over here. He's going to take you on a date. He's going to take you out to eat. He's going to take you to get a manicure, and he's going to watch a movie with you. Then he'll bring you back to me and drop you off. Is that okay? Who in here is good with that? Anybody think that sounds like a good time? I don't either. So if we all constitute the bride of Christ, we don't get to hire out our duties as a part of Him. We don't get to hire out our duties as a spouse to Jesus Christ. And so if all of us have a function, we can't pay somebody else to do it. So are there reasons to pay people in the church? Yes, in fact, it's a very biblical thing. But that doesn't mean that the rest of us get to do nothing. We're all called to operate as God calls us to, and so this means working inside of the church. We cannot become weary doing whatever it takes to care for our church and reach the lost around us. So how do you guard yourself from losing patience and growing weary? I think it's by guarding what motivates you to work. If you are working for praise, you're gonna get discouraged. You will. Because you know what? At some point you're going to do some great work, or you're going to work to the point of exhaustion and blood and tears, and somebody's going to complain about what you didn't do. Anybody ever had that happen? Where you worked so hard, just slaved at something. And somebody else came in and all they said was, well, you didn't do that. Makes you want to kill them, right? You just want to strangle somebody. But the fact is, in the church, most of the time, people won't know what you do. And if you're working for praise, you're going to get discouraged because at some point, people aren't going to notice what you're doing. Or they'll take it for granted. Or they're going to only focus on the negative. Or things happen. People aren't perfect. If you're working for a person, if you're working to please somebody else, they're going to disappoint you too. You know that? If your work inside of the church is so that other people will be happy with you and like you and will think that you are fitting in and doing the right thing, eventually that person will fail you. Do you know that? Eventually, I'm not going to notice things, or the deacons won't notice something, or your spouse won't notice what it is you're doing. And if you're working to please somebody else, they're not always going to be appreciative the way they should be. And so you'll get discouraged and you'll quit. But if you are working for Christ, you will be renewed. Because Jesus will always be appreciative. Jesus will always see what you're doing, and Jesus will always bless you for the work that's going on. We must guard our motivation for doing good in our church, because Christ will not share His glory with anyone else. I'm going to skip ahead to this, to the last commendation here. It's kind of ahead, and then we're going to wrap up with this. It says, "You hate the deeds of the Nicolaitans, which I hate." So all early writings, if you read a lot of church history, link Nicholas from Acts 6 to one of those first deacons. And so sometimes you'll see it that he was a false convert who taught the abuse of Christian liberty. So this would be a guy who looked the part, he played the game really well, and everybody thought that he was the real thing, but then it turned out that he was not, and he was somebody who taught a lot of people to live in sin by abusing Christian liberty, saying, well, because Jesus is forgiven, you can do anything you want. Because of the grace of Christ, then you don't have to worry about sin. And that's there. Other places you'll read things that he was, maybe that his words were misinterpreted or misrepresented by a group of heretics. So people who would take his word saying Jesus forgives all sin, and they take that and this other group ran with it and said, well, hey, if Nicholas says that Jesus forgives all sin, then why does it matter? And so maybe it was that they just abused what he said. But either way, this church is commended for hating anything that perverts the gospel of Christ. God gives us this hatred of anything that perverts the gospel, that changes it, that makes it wrong, that lessens it or waters it down or makes it legalistic. Either side, he's saying, look, I'm praising, Jesus praises them for not going with this group that is changing what the gospel is all about. It is a hatred of sin, and it is total grace, and those things do fit together. And they're supposed to fit the right way. I want you guys to... Actually, no, don't bow your heads yet. Let's talk about this for a minute. These commendations that we get to see of Jesus, first of all, saying, look, your works are there. That's the first thing we need to look at inside of our life as Wetmore Baptist Church. Would Jesus come and write a letter to us? And that's how we always need to interpret this. What if he wrote us a letter? What would it say? Would he be able to say, I see your works. You guys are doing the actions of a Christian. Your life looks different because of me in it. And then the second thing he talks about is their toil, their labor to the point of exhaustion. Would he look at us and say, Wetmore Baptist Church, I see your work. Man, you've worked hard. I see it. And it is worship to God when we work hard for his church in whatever he's gifted us at. Would he look at us and say, man, Wetmore Baptist Church, I'm going to bless it. Would he look at us and say that he would, he's commending us and he sees our patient endurance? That instead of complaining and criticizing everything, we bear up under it and get courageous and say, even though this is hard, or even though that's not right, I'm going to do everything I can to make it better. Who cares what everybody else does? I'm going to bear up under this hardship. When you look at us and say, man, you care about sin inside of your church. You deal with it. You don't gossip about it or sweep it under the rug. You go and you lovingly confront somebody so that you can help them know that sin destroys lives. Would he commend us on these very things that he commends the church in Ephesus? Bow your heads with me. I think that when I'm looking at this, that at least several of these, I think that I see so many good things in our church. I feel like we can be encouraged by it. I see a church who does work hard. I see a church who does look like Christ has changed them. I see a church who has patiently endured. In fact, you've had every reason to have to patiently endure, haven't you? There's been very difficult times in the last few years here, and I know we're not going to go into it today, but you guys have endured. And I think Jesus could write us a letter and say, man, Wetmore Baptist Church, you have endured patiently under the hardship that has come. I think that he could write a letter to you saying, man, look at the work you're doing. You're working so hard. I think he could write a letter saying, man, in the way you live in your workplace, the way that you talk to others, you look like Christ. I think that he could write us saying, man, you've been very careful with who you've allowed to come into leadership because you don't want anyone to lead you astray. And I think we should get encouragement from that. We should be encouraged by seeing some of these things, but I think we should also be encouraged to grow in them. To say, Jesus, let us do those things better. Let us more fully do those. If there's anyone in here who maybe feels like I haven't been there, I haven't been the one working to the point of exhaustion for the church. I haven't been the one who's been dealing with sin appropriately because I just don't, it's too uncomfortable. Or I haven't been the one who's endured patiently. I've been a critical person who's complained more than I've helped. Then maybe there's some individual repentance that needs to happen in here today. And I think that all of us can take this time this morning to say, Jesus, help us to look more like that. Lord, I pray that you just guide us to this morning. Guide us to look more like you. Help us to be a church that is seen for the works of you in our lives, that the Spirit shines through us in our actions. Help us to be a church that works hard to the point of exhaustion for the betterment of your kingdom and for your glory. Help us to be a church who patiently endures hardship. We don't cower or complain or run away. We bear up under it and become courageous and do what we can. Lord, help us to be a church that hates sin and deals with it correctly. Not sweeping it under the rug, not gossiping about it, but dealing with it in love and with desire for restoration. Help us to be a church that is careful about what we allow to influence us, so that we can be commended just like Ephesus was in these things. Lord, I pray if there's anyone in here who hears this and doesn't know what it's like to know you as a Savior, know what it means to be changed by you, know what it means to live a life that is utterly upside down because of what you've done. And I pray, God, you would give them a conviction that your Spirit will work inside their hearts right now, and you would call them to salvation. Lord, give them the courage to walk forward and confess you before our church as their Savior, so that we can just praise you together for what you're doing in their lives. God, if there's anyone in here who needs to join our church, I pray that you would call them to that today, that you give them the courage to walk forward, and in the invitation as well, to come up here to say they want to be a part of this. Because they want to be a part of your body, and be your bride together with the church. And Lord, lastly, I want to pray that if there's anybody in here who needs repentance, who needs to go through a time of confessing things to you that they don't look like this, they haven't dealt with sin correctly, they haven't patiently endured, they haven't been working hard. I pray, God, you just call them to deal with that, to confess it, and to seek after you. Lord, we love you so much. In your name I pray. Amen. You got to stand and respond however God wants you to.
On page 249, Jesus paid it all. I hear the sinners say, thy strength indeed is small. Child of weakness, wash and pray. Find in me thine own law. Jesus paid it all to Him I owe. Sin had left a crimson stain, He washed through white as snow. Lord, now indeed I find Thy power and Thine alone can change the leper's spots and melt a heart of stone. Jesus paid it all to Him I owe. Sin had left a crimson stain, He washed it white as snow. I want to teach you guys an added chorus in this song. It just talks about praising the one who raised our life from the dead. That's all it says. Oh, praise the one who came our dead and raised His life up from the dead. Oh, praise the one who came our dead and raised His life up from the dead. Oh, praise the one who came our dead and raised His life up from the dead. Oh, praise the one who came our dead and raised His life up from the dead. Jesus paid it all to Him I owe. Sin had left a crimson stain, but He washed it white as snow. Sin had left a crimson stain, but He washed it white as snow.
Jesus, thank you for your grace. Thank you that you paid it all. Lord, I pray that, I know we only got to go through half of this letter, half of this part that you wrote to Ephesus, but I pray that it's challenging to us, that we can see what you commended in the church and can say, okay, if that's what means a lot to you, that should mean a lot to us. Help what's important to you be important to us, Christ. Help us to chase those things as Wetmore Baptist Church. Help us to think critically about if you were to write us a letter, what it would look like. And help us to